Mr. Clark said Wolfowitz, the neocon architect of Bush's war on Iraq, told him of plans to clean out the Middle East and take over those Muslim nations. Just 10 days after 9/11, Clark was shown a Pentagon memo that describes how they planned to take out 7 countries, Muslim countries, in 5 years, starting with Iraq, then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and then Iran. They call this project the Greater Middle East Project, but for the public and the media, they're calling it the Arab Spring.
You can see the idea. The Anglo-American policy is to destroy every one of these nation states. What do they expect to get instead? Micro-states, mini-states, warlords, secession, or chaos. Chaos is perfectly acceptable to them. The only part of Libya that they care about is the oil part. The rest can go to hell. And similarly in other countries, right? The mask is freedom, human rights, singing tomorrows, the internet, Twitter, Facebook, Google, all this stuff. But if you fight back, as Gaddafi did, they drop the mask and the bombs begin to fall. So the color revolution is a kind of preferred option. But if that doesn't work, they will then try direct military attack.
I mean, in Libya, when the fighting started, nearly 100,000 Chinese had to leave Libya. They weren't in Libya sightseeing. They were working throughout Libya, building infrastructure for development.
Look, I've been in Libya and Syria in the past 6 months. I was in Libya during the NATO bombing. I was in Syria last November. So in the case of Libya, Gaddafi is targeted because of his independence, his oil, his water. It's one of the most, I think, positive things that's been done in North Africa in many, many years. Gaddafi had also brought Libya to number 57 on the UN Human Development ranking. So Gaddafi was ahead of Russia, ahead of Ukraine, ahead of Brazil, ahead of a lot of places around the world. And he was number 1 in Africa.
Men of goodwill and generosity should be able to unite regardless of party or politics. of goodwill and generosity should be able to unite regardless of party or politics. Men of goodwill and generosity should be able to unite.
Very important role in this. Pakistan is obviously one of the most targeted countries, slightly different ways. With Pakistan, the key is oil and the idea of an oil corridor between Iran or even Iraq on the one side, and China on the other. Biggest single problem of China is they need oil. They would need to have a corridor, a pipeline, going from Iran, Iraq, some version of that, up through Pakistan. The words for this are Pipelinistan, that's Pakistan, or the Pakistan Energy Corridor. So what's the U.S. approach to that? This is contained in Obama's West Point speech of December 2009. Basically, it's to say there's been a civil war in Afghanistan for decades, and there will be, probably. Let's export that civil war into Pakistan. Let's push it into Pakistan, so that we can have the breakup of Pakistan, the smashing of the Pakistani state, mini-states. So we'll have Pashtunistan, we'll have Sindh, we'll have Punjab, and we'll have Baluchistan.
At the Gas Exporting Countries Forum in 2010, Vladimir Putin declared that the era of cheap gas was over. This means political use of energy pipelines. Also in his meeting with José Manuel Barroso, the president of the European Commission in early 2011, Putin was very critical of Europe's policies on liquid gas. He warned that if Europe continued on its course, Russia, which was aware of the world's growing need for liquid gas, would turn part of the gas it exported to Europe into liquid in order to export to other countries, and raise the price of the part that was actually exported to Europe.
We have already paid Ukraine $2.5 billion for transit. Let the Europeans throw in a lousy billion. Why have they become so stingy down there? They have money too. Let them get something out of their pockets.
Between 2006 and 2009, Russia cut off its gas exports to Ukraine, citing avarice as the reason behind this action. Thus, it could win against Europe in that political struggle.
Unocal pipeline plays a role, but you notice there is no Unocal pipeline, and there's not going to be. Right? Even with all these wars, 10 years of war, no Unocal pipeline. For example, one thing that would represent a strategic revolution in the world would be an oil pipeline starting in Iran. It could start in Iraq. It would go through Pakistan, right, the so-called Pipelinistan or Pakistan Energy Corridor. It would go into China above the Himalayas, and with this, the #1 strategic problem of the Chinese would be solved. And it would also create a powerful common interest among Iraq, Iran, Pakistan, China. Could go into India. This would be even better. This would mean a powerful common interest of even India and Pakistan. We could begin to overcome the long-term friction between India and Pakistan. This is what the Anglo-Americans are determined to prevent, to smash. This is why they want to divide Pakistan into those 4 or 5 competing microstates or mini-states. And I say microstates and mini-states because this is the term used by Zbigniew Brzezinski in his most recent theoretical works, right? The rump state, the pathetic, defenseless, impotent little entity which is helpless in the face of ExxonMobil, JP Morgan Chase, Blackwater, Halliburton, or whoever it is.
Journalist and historian Mr. Engel has to say more. He said the ultimate goal of the United States is to take the resources of Africa and Middle East under military control in order to block economic growth in China and Russia, thus taking the whole of Eurasia under control. Now, you may not know it now, but America is already at war with China and Russia.